Now,
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Time is 6:36 this Friday morning. Thanks for tuning in. Coming up in 30 minutes, we'll speak with Rich Anderson, chairman of the Republican Party in Virginia. And then at 7:35, Glenn Youngkin, governor of Virginia. They're both here to focus on early voting beginning today in the Commonwealth. At 8:05, our own Vince Colonnese will be on the ground at an early voting location in Fairfax. I'm Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka, two Marylanders here talking about Virginia, but that's all right. We play both sides of the river if necessary.
I mean, we're all family in the DMV.
Joining us right now is Maryland Congressman Andy Harris. He is the entirety of the Republican caucus in the House of Representatives for Maryland, but he's hoping to have some company soon. And, well, he's also the newly elected chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. Congratulations, Andy Harris.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Listen, early voting doesn't happen in Maryland for another month, but mail-in ballots, of course, are going. I'm seeing those darn drop boxes already popping up in my neighborhood. How's this election looking? I know you've got to be out there, and you've got to be hoping that Neil Parrott, at least in Maryland 6, probably the best chance you've got to have some company.
That's right. I think that's true. You know, he's running against someone who's a dyed-in-the-wool liberal who doesn't even live in the district. I think that he's got a good shot.
Great. And I got to ask you, because, you know, Larry Hogan, of course, would love to be a sort of white rhino there. You know, it's very hard to get a Republican senator from Maryland. How long has it been? Like 50 years, 60 years? He's running an interesting campaign, but as a Maryland Republican, I don't feel like he's made much of a case to get my vote. Can you make that case for him? Why should Republicans vote for Larry Hogan?
Well, look, the most important region by far is so that Chuck Schumer is definitely not the next majority leader in the U.S. Senate. We can't have Chuck Schumer. Larry, pretty clearly is going to vote for a Republican majority leader. And again, look, he has an independent streak. Obviously, Joe Manchin endorsed him, but he will vote. He will not vote for Chuck Schumer to be majority leader.
Okay, all right.
So, Chairman Good, congratulations again. I mean, I think the Freedom Caucus has been such an important voice in reining in and holding back the ridiculous, reckless spending that has, frankly, driven inflation to 40-year highs. Under your leadership, how are you? What are your thinking in terms of the end of the year? I mean, we've got a potential plan for another stopgap measure to get us through at least the election season. But how can we ensure that real spending bills are being passed and that there's some real fiscal responsibility and accountability for every taxpayer dollar?
Well, the most important thing we can do is to maximize our ability to avoid a huge Democrat-driven omnibus bill in December. I think it's pretty clear, some stopgap measure will pass that probably gets us into December. But December's a totally different story, whereas, a shutdown is probably not a good idea in 1 month before an election. 23 months before an election, that might be an entirely different story if that's what we need to control reckless spending and to control our border. And we can't forget that. Almost every single Democrat voted to allow illegal immigrants to basically vote in U.S. elections. That's just ridiculous.
Does Speaker Johnson have your vote of support going into the next Congress at this point, or are you hoping to have a conversation with him? And because, listen, let's face it, the Freedom Caucus is going to be integral for Johnson or whomever else wants to hold that gavel. That's obviously true. We have almost 36 members, so it's a sizable group. But I think he showed real leadership bringing that bill to the floor this week, the one that again would extend the continuing resolution into a potential Trump administration and include the SAVE Act, which of course would make sure that illegal immigrants can't vote in federal elections. And I think that showed real leadership to bring it to the floor, even though he knew he may not win that fight on the floor. That's what we have to show. We have to show the American people at least we're fighting for them. Because of the Democrats, we won't always win, but at least we're fighting.
When I think about the Democrats and just these spending battles, they've been really saying, "Oh well, Republicans need us to come to the rescue." I don't think that's the case. We've seen it happen, but I don't think that's the case. And so, hopefully, going forward, if they get on board, that's fine. But if not, it is what it is. Because I think we need to rein in that reckless spending that we've been seeing for a potential, the new Congress next year. What would be some of your ideas going forward of what is some kind of the day one priorities you'd want to tackle?
Well, again, we're going to have another election for the Freedom Caucus chair after the November elections. We have to wait until the dust settles. Let's see what happens. But if the situation is where I'm, reelected to the chairmanship, spending is the number one priority, no question about it. Close behind is we have to clean up this immigration mess. Look, I'm with President Trump. You got to start deporting the millions of people who you let into this country illegally. A majority of Americans agree with that. I agree with that. We have to reverse what has happened over the past 4 years. And then we have to go on, and we have to make sure that we make sure that the government is not interfering with your liberties and freedoms. They're not doing, they're not sending out DOJ SWAT teams to your house because you protested at a Planned Parenthood, things like that.
We're speaking with Andy Harris, who's now not just Congressman from Maryland, but he just got elected to fill the vacant slot for the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. Congressman, I know it's not as sexy a conversation, but a lot of people look at the last several years of continuing resolution after continuing resolution, omnibus bill after omnibus bill, and they see that that's the real root of the problem. I remember John Boehner running in 2010, hoping the Republicans could get the majority back, promising to go back to regular order, promising to go through the real appropriations process that Congress is supposed to go through and not have these last-minute 4 people in a room negotiating trillions of dollars of omnibus packages. Is it realistic to go back there? Can we begin that process the day after the election and actually move to real regular order on our budget and appropriations?
Well, on the House side, we were way over halfway there. I mean, we appropriated and got past the floor way over 70% of the total budget. But we looked over on the other side of the Capitol, and the Senate did nothing on the floor. So at some point you decide that, hey, let's move on to other important business. Chuck Schumer's deciding that he wants to cook up appropriations bills in some smoke-filled back room and make all the deals. I think the most important thing we can do is we can go to a 2-year appropriations cycle for everything except the defense budget, because the defense budget needs to remain nimble. We have stops and starts that are important, but we should consider going to a 2-year cycle for all the other parts of the federal government, which would free up a whole lot more time to have the appropriate discussions on these bills.
Congressman Andy Harris of Maryland, chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again, I'm sure, between now and Election Day.
Thank you.